The physical criterion of personal identity. There has been much debate about the nature both of persons and of personal identity over time. It will help to distinguish these questions. 1. What is the nature of a person? 2. What makes a person at two different times one and the same person? What is necessarily involved in the continued existence of each person over time? The answer to 2 can take this form. X today is one and the same person as Y at some past time, if and only if. Such an answer states the necessary and sufficient conditions for personal identity over time. In answering 2, we shall also partly answer 1. The necessary features of our continued existence depend upon our nature. And the simplest answer to 1 is that to be a person, a being must be self-conscious, aware of its identity and its continued existence over time. We can also ask 3. What is in fact involved in the continued existence of each person over time? Since our continued existence has features that are not necessary, the answer to 2 is only part of the answer to 3. For example, having the same heart and the same character are not necessary to our continued existence, but they are usually part of what this existence involves. Many writers use the ambiguous phrase, the criterion of identity over time. Some mean by this our way of telling whether some present object is identical with some past object. But I shall mean what this identity necessarily involves or consists in. In the case of most physical objects, on what I call the standard view, the criterion of identity over time is the spatio-temporal physical continuity of this object. This is something that we all understand, even if we fail to understand the description I shall now give. In the simplest case of physical continuity, like that of the pyramids, an apparently static object continues to exist. In another simple case, like that of the moon, an object moves in a regular way. Many objects move in less regular ways, but they still trace physically continuous spatio-temporal paths. Suppose that the billiard ball that I painted red is the same as the white ball with which last year I made a winning shot. On the standard view, this is true only if this ball traced such a continuous path. It must be true, 1, that there is a line through space and time starting where the white ball rested before I made my winning shot and ending where the red ball now is. 2, that at every point on this line there was a billiard ball. And 3, that the existence of a ball at each point on this line was in part caused by the existence of a ball at the immediately preceding point. Some kinds of thing continue to exist even though their physical continuity involves great changes. A Camberwell beauty is first an egg, then a caterpillar, then a chrysalis, then a butterfly. These are 4 stages in the physically continuous existence of a single organism. Other kinds of things cannot survive such great changes. Suppose that an artist paints a self-portrait and then, by repainting, turns this into a portrait of his father. Even though these portraits are more similar than a caterpillar and a butterfly, they are not stages in the continued existence of a single painting. The self-portrait is a painting that the artist destroyed In a general discussion of identity, we would need to explain why the requirement of physical continuity differs in such ways for different kinds of thing. But we can ignore this here. Can there be gaps in the continued existence of a physical object? Suppose that I have the same gold watch that I was given as a boy, even though for a month it lay disassembled on a watch repairer's shelf. On one view, in the spatiotemporal path traced by this watch, there was not at every point a watch. So my watch does not have a history of full physical continuity. But during the month when my watch was disassembled and did not exist, all of its parts had histories of full continuity. On another view, even when it was disassembled, my watch existed. Another complication again concerns the relation between a complex thing and the various parts of which it is composed. It is true of some of these things, though not true of all, that their continued existence need not involve the continued existence of their components. Suppose that a wooden ship is repaired from time to time while it is floating in harbor, and that after 50 years it contains none of the bits of wood out of which it was first built. It is still one and the same ship, because, as a ship, it has displayed throughout these 50 years full physical continuity. This is so, despite the fact that it is now composed of quite different bits of wood. These bits of wood might be qualitatively identical to the original bits, but they are not one and the same bits. Something similar is partly true of a human body. With the exception of some brain cells, the cells in our bodies are replaced with new cells several times in our lives. I have now described the physical continuity which, on a standard view, makes a physical object one and the same after many days or years. This enables me to state one of the rival views about personal identity. On this view, what makes me the same person over time is that I have the same brain and body. The criterion of my identity over time, or what this identity involves, is physical continuity over time of my brain and body. I shall continue to exist if and only if this particular brain and body continue both to exist and to be the brain and body of a living person. This is the simplest version of this view. There is a better version. This is the physical criterion. 1. What is necessary is not the continued existence of the whole body, but the continued existence of enough of the brain to be the brain of a living person. X today is one and the same person as Y at some past time, if and only if 2. Enough of Y's brain continued to exist and is now X's brain, and 3. This physical continuity has not taken a branching form. 4. Personal identity over time just consists in the holding of facts like 2 and 3. 1 is clearly true in certain actual cases. Some people continue to exist even though they lose the use of much of their bodies. 3 will be explained later. Those who believe in the physical criterion would reject teletransportation. They would believe this to be a way not of traveling, but of dying. They would also reject as inconceivable reincarnation. They believe that someone cannot have a life after death unless he lives his life in the resurrection of the very same physically continuous body. This is why some Christians insist that they be buried. They believe that if, Like Greek and Trojan heroes, they were burnt on funeral pyres, and their ashes scattered. Not even God could bring them to life again. God could create only a replica, someone else who was exactly like them. Other Christians believe that God could resurrect them if he reassembled their bodies out of the bits of matter that, when they were last alive, made up their bodies. This would be like the reassembly of my gold watch.